Okay, good evening to everyone. Today, my group and I will be presenting on our land law group assignment. So, our topic here focus on process and legal provision relating to the transfer of land under the National Land Code 1965, and using the case of transfer from father Encik Ahmad to his daughter Cik Aisha. In this presentation, we will explain how transfer of land is carried out, how, I'm sorry, how the transfer of land is carried out under Malaysian law. So we will look at the form of 14A. So these procedural steps at the land office, the legal framework under the National Land Code and principle of indefeasibility of title. So our case study involves transfer land based on love and affection between family members. The transfer of land law must be done using Form 14A, which is the principal instrument under the National Land Code. So specifically sections 215 to 218. In our case, the transferor is Encik Ahmad and the transferee is his daughter, Cik Aisha. And the land involved is HSM 3341, lot 4521 in Mukim Gombak. So the consideration state is love and affection, which legally acceptable in family members, family transfers. Okay, for the transfer of to be valid, both transferor and transferee must sign the 14A form, and their signature must be as stated by an advocate and solicitor, a, a commissioner of oath, and or a land administrator. Administrator. So the witnesses must confirm that both parties are fully aged, are Malaysian citizens, and they signed voluntarily. So importantly, ownership does not pass until the transfer is registered under the land office.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning to everyone that are watching this video. My name is Hafiz Daniel bin Zulkarnain. My metric number is DIL 241306, and I would like to present it to you guys for my part of presentation, that is the procedural steps for property transfer using Form 40A at the land office. So let's get into it. The first step is the preparation of Form 40A and supporting documents. First, both of the transferor and transferee must complete and sign Form 40A, which is the official instrument of transfer. Your signature must be attested by a commissioner for oath and solicitor. And the second step next is the documents are submitted to Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri, or LHDN, for stamp duty adjudication. The stamp duty is calculated based on the higher of the market value or the sale price. In some cases, such as family transfer or first-time home buyers, exemptions may apply. Once paid, LHDN will endorse the form as adjudicated, allowing us to proceed. The next step, with the adjudicated Form 40A and supporting documents, we proceed to lodge them at the land office. The office will verify all documents before moving on to registration. Additional documents may be requested depending on the property type and local regulation. Step 4. The transferee must then pay a registration fee based on the property value. Once payment is made, an official receipt is issued, which allows the transfer to proceed. The last step, finally, the land office registers the transferee as the new legal owner. The new issue document of title is issued in the transferee's name, such as Aisha in this example. Once ready, the land office will notify the new owner to collect the title, finally completing the transfer process. Thank you. That concludes the summary of the property transfer process using Form 40A.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Fatimah binti Muhammad Ismail. Okay, we see about the legal provisions. The Section 215, Power of Trust Transfer, under that section of the National Land Code 1965. The registered proprietor of alienate land has the legal power to transfer the whole or any part of the interest in the land to another person. Second one is the Section 216, the manner of the transfer. Section 216 is the transfer, any transfer of land or any interest in land must be made in the prescribed form, namely Form 14A of the NLC. The transfer must be executed by both parties, the transferor and the transferee, and properly attested. Once registered, the transfer becomes the new registered property of the land. Then the Section 217, effect of the register of transfer. Once the transfer has been registered with the land office, Section 217 provides that the transferee that obtain the same right, powers, and privileges in relations of the land as previously held by the transferor. The legal ownership based only upon the register, not merely upon the executions of the transfer document. And then requirements for a valid transfer. For a valid transfer under the National Land Code 1965 is be using the prescribed Form 14A in accordance of the Section 215 of the NLC. The form serves as the statutory instruments for transferring ownership of alienate land. Secondly, the executions of the transfer is essential, but both parties, which is both the transfer and both transferee, must sign in the instrument, and the date of executions must be inserted. This confirms the parties' consent or agreement to the transactions. Thirdly, the attestations of signature is a mandatory requirement. The signatures of both parties must be attested by a qualified witness, and then such as an advocate or solicitor, commissioner for oaths and administration. Then the fourth one is the transfer instrument must be the stamp under the Stamp Act 1949. Even though the transfer in the case is by a way of a law, affections, adjudications on Inland Revenue Board is still required to determine the applicable stamp duty or exemptions. Finally, the registration of the instrument of the land office is crucial. A transfer has no legal effect, and in registration ensure the transferee is a name is entered in the registered document of the title, which is RDT, and endorsement of the issues document of title IDT, trebly confirm legal ownership. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Firas bin Rashidi. My matric number is TIL231305. So now we'll talk about effects and registration. Under the National Land Code 1965, ownership of land does not pass by the mere execution of documents, but only upon registration. Section 92 provides that once the transfer is registered, all right, interests, and liabilities of the transferor automatically vest in the transferee. Section 93 further affirms that a registered proprietor may transfer the whole of his land through the prescribed Form 40A, but the transfer only becomes effective upon registration. Similarly, Section 213 recognizes transfer without consideration, such as between family members for love and affection, provided that they are duly registered. Thus, registration is the operative act that perfects ownership and secures the transferee's right. The distinction between execution and registration is clearly supported by Section 218 NLC, which expressly states that no transfer shall operate to pass any interest in land until the instrument is registered. This principle ensures that ownership passes only upon registration, not upon execution. Until the land office lodge and endorse the transferee merely holds an equitable rights and is not yet the legal proprietor. Once the registration is complete, however, the transferee acquires indefeasibly ownership under 340 NLC, which protects the title from challenge except in the case of fraud, forgery, or void stealing. This legal safeguard provides certainty for landowners and third parties, allowing the register to serve as conclusive evidence of ownership. Malaysia's adoption of the torrent system reinforces this framework through its three core principles. Firstly is the mirror principle, the curtain principle, and the indefeasible principle. The mirror principle requires that the land register reflects the true state of ownership and interest. The curtain principle means that the parties need not look behind the register to investigate prior dealings, as the register itself is the conclusive. Finally, the indefeasible principle enshrined in the Section 340 NLC guarantees that once registered, the proprietor title is secure and cannot be challenged except under a limited statutory exception. Accordingly, in the case such as Encik Ahmad's transfer to Cik Aisyah, her ownership may only be perfected and protected once her name is entered in register, giving her full legal security over the land. That's all for me.
Now, I will explain the legal provisions under the National Land Code. Firstly, Section 120 of the NLC allows the state authority to impose restrictions in interest. This means that in certain cases, the consent of the state authority is required before land can be transferred, leased, or charged. There are also special conditions that apply to certain types of land. For example, Malay reserve land cannot be inherited by non-Malays. Similarly, Bumiputra lots can only be transferred to Bumiputra buyers unless special permission is given. The state authority can also impose land use conditions such as residential use only or restrictions on subdivision. In Encik Ahmad case, when we checked his land title, there were no restrictions. This means that the transfer of his land to his daughter Aisyah can go ahead smoothly and it will be valid. So, to conclude everything, the important form here is Form 14A, which is under the transfer of land. But just signing the form is not enough. The transfer only becomes effective after it is registered at the land office. Since Ahmad's land is freehold and has no restrictions, the transfer to Aisyah is valid, legal, and once registered, her ownership is secure and protected by the law. That is all from us. Thank you.